9:30? Yeah. Okay. Now we begin the most eagerly anticipated part, at least from department heads' standpoint of the year, the budget hearings. And so, Jennifer, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of get us started before we kick off with the district attorney.
Yep. Jennifer Sauer, Financial Administrator. I just wanted to give a quick reminder before we get started that this is a working budget session where we are working through the departmental requests. These are just the initial requests made by the departments. This is not necessarily where our budget stands right now. This is just a work in process. So today, the 27th, we will be going through 2 of our 5 budget groups, the law enforcement group and the recreation group. And on July 1st, we'll be going through the other 3 groups, public works, public health, and administrative services. Then this will all culminate where we know our full budget on September 5th at 9 a.m., which is when we will do our public hearing for our revenue neutral rate and start looking at our 2025 actual budget adoption at that time. So the district attorney, I believe, will get us started.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Mike Kage, Shawnee County District Attorney. Thank you for your time this morning. I know we have a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to be as efficient as possible with my time. But I want to start off by touching on some of the work that we've done over the past year. And I think it's important to pause and reflect at a time like this. What is it that my office is charged with doing? What are the things that we are providing for the community as a service? How are we protecting the community from those who would harm it? So I want to highlight briefly some jury trials that we've handled over the past year and what those outcomes were to give you a sense for what we deal with in the DA's office. I'm going to start by talking about a man named Emmanuel Walker. He shot and killed Kirk Sexton in July of 2022. That case went to jury trial last year, after this same time last year. He was sentenced and convicted for those offenses, and he received a sentence of 52.2 years. So what does that mean? Mr. Walker is done shooting and killing people. Right? Job done. Daniel Brashears, in October of 2022, sexually assaulted a grown woman. He was charged with rape, aggravated burglary, and other offenses. Ultimately, he was convicted by a Shawnee County jury after being prosecuted by my office in August of last year. He was sentenced to a term of 51.5 years in prison. Mr. Brashears is done raping women. Troy Vasecta, this is a 2021 case. And this is, all these cases are incredibly difficult, but when it involves the death of a child, it's especially painful. In this instance, he was driving the wrong way down a street. He was intoxicated, he was speeding, and he collided with another vehicle. And inside that vehicle was a 7-month-old baby, and that baby unfortunately died as a result. But we tried and convicted this man in December of 2023, and in April of this year, he was sentenced to 45 years in prison. So again, he is done hurting people. Jihad Keys is a young man who decided to form a criminal street gang, and in an attempt to gain notoriety and credibility for it, he went on a crime spree, and he recruited others to his cause. So he committed a series of offenses between 2017 and 2019. He's been in custody since 2019, but to give you a sense for what COVID did, right? 2019, he's been in custody. He was convicted this year for those offenses, and he was sentenced to prison for 77.5 years. So again, Mr. Keys is done hurting people. I want to talk briefly about another shooting that happened in 2021. Again, sometimes these cases take a while to process. Jeremy Vail was convicted of shooting and killing a man named Aaron Shepard in May of 2021. And in May of this year, we were able to achieve a sentence of over 51 years. So again, Mr. Vail is done shooting and killing people. The last case I want to talk about today is Austin Langley. This is a 2020 case. Mr. Langley was charged with attempted murder in the first degree. He approached a gentleman who was working at a fireworks stand and proceeded to stab him. And we had evidence uncovered during the investigation that this could have been racially motivated. And so we filed a motion to that effect. Mr. Langley has been sentenced now to a term of 55 years in prison. He's done stabbing people. So, why does this matter? Well, I probably don't need to tell you last year was a terrible year for public safety in this community. Last year, we set a record for the number of homicides, a record that I hope we never see again. I hope we never would have achieved in the first place. And most of those homicides have landed at our door. This presents a tremendous burden and responsibility for the attorneys in my office and the staff that supports them. So, if you recall, this body approved ARPA funding a few years back to help us overcome the COVID backlog. That allowed us to hire 3 support staff positions, non-attorneys, and they have done excellent work in our office since that time. They've become key members of our staff, in fact. The ARPA funding goes away at the end of this year. Part of my request is to convert that ARPA funding into a full-time budget item moving forward. I cannot conceive of a scenario where those folks are not part of my staff doing the necessary work that they've done since they've arrived. We still do have a backlog, unfortunately. As it stands today, or actually this is Tuesday of this week, I asked for those numbers. Currently we have 561 felony cases that are pending review. These are pre-filing. Okay, these cases have not been charged yet. 250 misdemeanor cases as well in the juvenile division, so offenders under the age of 18. We have 203 felony cases that are pending filing, and we have 44 misdemeanor cases as well. That remains an ongoing project. My job is to lead and manage the largest law firm in this region. And in order to do that, you have to have lawyers. There is a shortage of attorneys. The law schools have shrunk their class sizes year over year. Passage rates with the bar exam have been diminishing in recent years. What that means is that there's fierce competition for people with a law license. And you can imagine most of those people are not headed into public service. We want the ones that are looking to do this kind of work. We try to identify them. And the best way for us to do that is by getting them early when they're in law school, when they're a 1L, when they're a 2L, bringing them into our office as a volunteer, as an extern, as an intern. And that's the way that we essentially grow our own attorneys, kind of like a farm system in baseball, if you will. And we've had good success with that. In fact, that program has really exploded in the last year. And we've had a number of talented young law students reach out to us because they've heard about our program, they want to be a part of the office. It's not a guarantee that all of them will eventually work for us, but history says that some of them will. In fact, right now, I'm waiting for 3 of our interns to pass the bar exam in July and begin as licensed attorneys in my office this September. That is the plan. If that happens, then we will have a full attorney staff for the first time since 2019. So, the last thing I want to reference, and then I'm happy to stand for any questions. We have had ongoing storage space issues This is related to the use of Axon videos and all the digital evidence that has become a part of every single criminal investigation since approximately 2016. That takes up a tremendous amount of space, and so we have a solution to that that was developed in conjunction with our IT department, and Mr. Price is here to speak to that as well, but before I call on him, I'm going to ask my Chief Deputy, Charles Kitt, to briefly explain to you the necessity of this program. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. The DA did not ask me to make this comment, but I wanted to add this to his comments. I myself started as an intern in the DA's office, and I can tell you that that time was invaluable in shaping who I wanted to be and me wanting to join public service. And we have several like me in our office that started out in law school, not knowing exactly where they wanted to end up, but through internships and paid internships, because law students have bills too. That's how we get those people into the office, and that's how we get them committed to public service. So I just wanted to add that. So the reason I'm here to speak this morning is specifically on an increase in our budget that's directly related to storage. So just for historical perspective, in 2017, when Mr. Kage's administration started, within the first 60 days, there was a lot of housekeeping that went on in the office, aligning new personnel, that sort of thing. One of the things that we noticed was digital storage was not properly accounted for. In 2015, the Topeka Police Department fully went to body cameras, and the Topeka Police Department's our biggest contributing agency for cases. The Shawnee County Sheriff's Office is number 2 on the number of cases provided. They've also gone to body cameras. In the old days, a case would come to us in a box with all of the paper reports and then a couple of VHS tapes, and then eventually those became DVDs. We would send that to the Copy Center and Smith Audio Visual, who would reproduce that material for defense counsel. It was a lengthy process, but that's how case files were managed. When cases were concluded, they went into a box and they went to Jayhawk Storage, later Iron Mountain Storage, and we paid thousands of dollars a month to house those boxes there. And when a post-trial motion was filed where a document was needed, or an open records request where a document had to be reviewed, we would put in a request to those companies. It would be a 3 to 5 day turnaround. We would pay a fee in addition to our storage fees, and they would locate the box and provide the box to us, and then we'd go through it and find the records we needed. In the last decade, this was all converted to digital, so now all of our material, we still have boxes of records that are in the sub-basement, but we withdrew everything from those storage companies, and we're converting slowly everything to digital that is archived. And all of our current files for the last several years have been digital. So the way we produce discovery now in our office, law enforcement will provide us a copy of reports in digital format. They get copied onto our server. Law enforcement will provide us digital copies of all digital evidence, including body cameras, which every officer has now, audio recordings that are made through digital recording, portable digital recording devices, interview room recordings that are made down at the law enforcement center, dispatch recordings, home security videos have seen a huge increase with Ring and other services available on a lot of houses. Those get copied to law enforcement and then copied onto our server. Surveillance from retail and industrial establishments, photographs, which photographs now have 10 times the pixels they did a decade ago. Social media records, police reports are digital now, and cell phone downloads. In many of our investigations, cell phones play a key role in it. We have people conspiring to commit a violent crime, and they will conspire through the use of their cell phone. So it requires law enforcement to obtain those, download those, and then provide to our office. And it's not as simple as picking the few pieces of evidence that we need from that cell phone, because we have to provide exculpatory evidence to defense counsel as well, so we have to provide it all to them. And it's not uncommon to see many cell phones in a single investigation, and a lot of them have storage capacities up to 250 gigabytes on a cell phone. So when you put that in perspective on a homicide case where we may have 30 or 40 officers with body cameras, we may have 20 to 30 surveillance videos, either from homes or retail establishments that have to be copied because they view somebody fleeing a crime scene or coming into a crime scene. The cell phone downloads that go in. Our cases have exponentially grown over the last decade or decade and a half. Since 2017, we have gone through a series of Band-Aid fixes for this. We've gone through upgrades in our IT server department. Mr. Price and his predecessor, Mr. Oblander, have done everything that they can to help keep up with this growing need, but we've never found a long-term solution. A few years ago, IT went to a new Nutanix files server. That was a great solution for a very short period of time. And this is where they can give us 10 terabytes of data storage in chunks, but we've reached the capacity. We currently have 3 servers dedicated to our office for our data storage. And the way these 3 servers are supposed to work is a copy of the original digital file, and then a copy of that to serve as backup, all contained within those 3 servers. But we've exceeded that capacity to the point we no longer have those backups. The servers are full with original files. And by the end of this year, we will have reached capacity on our ability to store original files, not counting a digital backup of that or off-site backups. So there's no redundancy left in our system. This project actually started working with Mr. Price as a capital improvement project through IT, where they would request CIP funds to install new servers to meet our demands. But it quickly, we quickly realized that there's no way to project for future needs when it comes to digital storage. Currently, we're using approximately 250 gigabytes daily. Working with Mr. Price and his staff, I've learned that our office uses more data within a 2-week time period than most of our county departments have used in a 20-year time period because of the types of evidence that I've described for you. So the ability to bring in new servers and then maintain those and then replace those in the future when they become full or when they reach their shelf life is not feasible. The alternative that we've looked to, which has improved their services over the last few years as we've monitored them, is Axon Justice. Axon Justice is a tool for prosecutors. And Axon is the same Axon brand that our law enforcement partners use for their body cameras. They use it for their interview rooms. In speaking with Director Cole, our jail staff and our ISP Community Corrections are looking to move towards Axon cameras for their staff as well. So they provide that tool to law enforcement, and Axon Justice for prosecutors it provides several things. The most important thing is unlimited cloud storage. And when I say unlimited, I don't mean unlimited like your cell phone provider says you have unlimited, but they nozzle you down after a certain time frame and it runs slower. It's unlimited. Whatever our needs are, Axon Justice provides it for a fixed price. And that's a fixed price that we can budget for in advance. So the number one thing is this is unlimited storage. The second thing that Axon Justice provides are tools within the system that also offset cost. For example, if we have a Ring video camera that we need to play video from, we have to purchase the software that will play that video and download that in order to use it. Axon cameras use a different software. A closed circuit video system from a local retail establishment may have a different. So we have multiple needs for video playing software and video editing software because we have to make redactions in a lot of our evidence we present in court. So we have to pay ongoing costs for these various different software packages just to play these videos or edit the videos or audios. Axon provides all of that with their set product that we're getting. So unlimited storage, plus the software capabilities that we need. And like I said, that offsets the cost of purchasing that software independently, and it offsets the cost of purchasing and maintaining servers. The last thing that I want to talk about on the benefits of Axon Justice is the discovery process itself. And Commissioner Cook, I know you'll be familiar with this because you've handled cases with our office. We get the files from law enforcement and download them to our server. Then we have to provide that to Defense Counsel, so it's uploaded to a share file, another place on our server, and then it is downloaded by Defense Counsel from that share file account. So this is a lengthy process. It may take 2 or 3 hours to upload a specific file. So our staff's computer sits there and runs while it downloads from law enforcement or uploads through share file. And then I'm not sure what difficulties come from the defense side, but I assume it's the same thing. You have to download, and that takes time and takes staff time and server capabilities. With Axon Justice, it's all done through the cloud. So law enforcement provides us a link from their own Axon accounts, and then it comes to our office and is stored in our cloud. And then from that, we can go in and edit if we need to make redactions, and we can provide a link to Defense Counsel so that they can go on and view all of it from the cloud and without the need to download it. Now, they can download it if they choose to, and I'm sure most will in a lot of circumstances, but it's not required for them to download it to view it. They can simply click the link and view it from the cloud. So it's going to save a lot of staff time in our office, but also for those partners we work with in criminal justice, including the defense. Other benefits of Axon Justice that are indirect would be, this is, again, cloud storage. So there is not only a cybersecurity team that works through Axon to protect all of this data, just like they protect it all for law enforcement, but there is redundancy built in different geographic locations. So if there was a catastrophic event at the courthouse, we would lose all of our data. There's not off-site backup. Not only do we not have on-site backup right now, but there's no off-site backup of that. Through Axon Justice, they have security, cybersecurity, and they have redundancy built in different geographic locations that would prevent a data loss from crippling our operations. The cybersecurity is important because we're all aware that our justice system, Kansas OJA, just went through a cybersecurity incident where their data was breached and lost. This would prevent that sort of thing from happening. I can't say that it will prevent all attempts on our data, but with the cybersecurity team from Axon working against that, plus the redundancy in the backups and the geographic locations, at least we would have our data where we could continue functioning as an office and wouldn't have to shut down. So I think that is another key benefit of this. And now talking about things that do not relate to the budget, other perks of the Axon Justice System, and these are just things that I like as a prosecutor. They have transcription service available. So right now, if we want to transcribe a recording of an interview, just because we don't want to sit and listen to an 8-hour interview where somebody sits in there for 4 hours by themselves and gets interviewed intermittently, now we click a button and Axon can transcribe this for us. So our prosecutors can quickly look at a transcript to see if somebody's talking, when they're talking, what they say, and then it has word search. So you can search for specific words, or you can click on a word and it'll take you to that point in the recording. So the efficiencies that it creates for a prosecutor, I can't put a value on that. It has multi-camera video capability. So currently, if we have I'm going to use an example of a use of force incident with law enforcement. The first thing we want to do is look at every body camera, every angle that's available, so we can see, when was the decision to use force made, who used force first, was this a self-defense thing, was this a reaction? And we have to look at each of those cameras independently. And with Axon Justice, we have the ability to watch all camera angles at the same time. So we could see what every officer is seeing, automatically synced up through their system, and see it live as it's happening from all angles. And we can produce those types of exhibits to be used in court to aid a jury in evaluating that evidence as well. They have full audit capabilities through Axon Justice. So if we need to see when was a piece of digital evidence transferred to our office, when did we get it, where did it come from, who accessed it, but when it was shared with Defense Counsel, when it was copied, when it was redacted, we can provide a full audit of all of this. As opposed to the system we use now, it's a series of emails and communications that we store internally. So if I need to see if a piece of evidence was turned over to defense, I have to read through all of the emails, and is there an email referencing this specific piece of evidence? So we have full auditing capabilities through Axon Justice. So bottom line, Axon Justice has given us two options, a 5-year contract or a 10-year contract. I would recommend the 10-year contract because we can put a number on what our data storage costs would be for the next 10 years. And it is roughly $100,000 a year for the cost of that. And in speaking with Director Price, that is significantly cheaper than what it would cost to purchase and maintain servers that would meet the same storage needs that we have, but it would, our own IT servers would not provide all of the other benefits that I've listed. So that is my request, the District Attorney's Office request, that the county consider that increase in the budget, which is approximately, and I think the exact numbers the District Attorney has included, but it's approximately $100,000 a year, and we could sign a contract and solve our data storage for the next 5 years or 10 years or whichever option is approved.
Jennifer, you had some thoughts on the Axon, whether or not it would be a capital improvement.
Sorry, yes, I did. I think, I believe it's listed as a capital improvement item, but we listed that it would be funded out of the general fund. So I believe it actually will belong more as an approval of the item, but then it will be an increase to the general fund budget of the DA's office.
Okay.
And Commissioner, if I can, just to clarify, the reason it started as a CIP is this is when we were speaking with IT about them doing a CIP for additional server space. And then that money we figured out would be better allocated towards a contractual service.
And that's because it's a reoccurring annualized expense.
Yes, that's true.
All right.
I did have one question, though. Can I
Yes.
ask real quick? So the pricing that was provided only went out 5 years, but that's what our CIP form does.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure the pricing that was listed is based off the 10-year agreement?
No, the pricing you got was based on the 5-year agreement, because when we were looking at the CIP, it went out 5 years, so that's what we included. The 10-year numbers were a little bit less, not significantly less, but they were a little bit less per year for the 10-year.
Other questions?
This does link up with the same system that the sheriff uses, and is,
Yes.
does that make it kind of a single source company that we, I mean, I don't know if there's other companies do the same thing, or?
There's nobody that provides a product like this. And Axon is what all of our partnering agencies use. So they have their own usernames and accounts. We would, if we purchase this service, we would get our own usernames and accounts, and they literally have to just click a button to check a box to share that data with us, and it automatically gets shared to our account.
Other questions? Commissioner Mays?
Not on the Axon.
Are there other questions as to the district attorney's budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've done a good job convincing me that the Axon software is needed. I guess, you know, my questions are probably primarily, and I don't know exactly what my specific question is, but the payroll has gone up significantly in the last 2 years. And I guess that's probably my big concern is the addition of more people. And, you know, it's not just salaries, but, you know, all of the other things that come with it. The temporary and seasonal employees have gone up from 2 years ago, 172,000 to now 631,000. I mean, it just seems like at some point, are we gonna reach a cap in like how many people we need, or?
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, Commissioner, and I think we're there, honestly. I think we're there. This is the funding that I need to provide an office to handle the workload required to protect the citizens of this community. and we're there. You give me this funding, I will give you the best prosecution office in the state of Kansas. That's where we're at.
How much of this increase is reflected in covering the ARPA money that was used?
So my recollection is the ARPA money was about $178,000.
I believe so.
And so that reflection would be the 178 plus 3% on top of that.
I think the 178 was for 2 years though, wasn't it?
Did it go up after that?
No, I think that was the total of the 2 years. So that would have been about 80,000 a year.
No, I think that was year over year. Because we've had those 3 positions funded by ARPA. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens, but I think we've had those 3 positions funded solely by ARPA since you all approved that.
Other inquiries? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the district court.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, 3rd Judicial District, Shawnee County District Court. With me this morning is Chief Judge Stephen Eberts, our Court Services Administrative Officer Amanda Wilson was here but needed to leave for a prior engagement, and Clerk of the District Court Stacy Pletcher is here as well. Stephanie's supposed to be running my PowerPoint, and it looks like it's stuck, so we can do without that.
Well, she's doing 1/4 of it.
Well, yeah, this is true. And there's only 4 slides, so it'll be easy. So in short, you have our proposed budget. Our 2024 budget was $2,994,863. As you can see, we're proposing an increase of approximately $167,000 to $3,162,536. I'm not going to go through line by line what all of our changes are. There were a number of line item changes that resulted in a net neutral effect to our budget, and those were simply made to reflect our actual expenditures based upon 2024 expenditures to date. As you can see, it's good. Thank you. In a minute, I'll get into the details of our request, but I'll just briefly review the 2 CIP requests that we've requested for 2025. The Self-Help Center and the Judicial Conference Room. These were both items that were included in the general scope of the courthouse renovation project initially. They were both cut due to overall expenses in the project. Part of the reason they were cut was because they were lower dollar values, and at the time, Betty Griner felt that these would be more easily absorbed than some of the larger projects in that overall renovation. The totals on those numbers are increased basically between 20 and 30% based upon estimates provided to me by CENI, since they were the ones that had bid those projects originally. Our 2025 drug court and veterans treatment court funding request is $15,000, which it has been for a number of years, and we're requesting that amount remain the same for 2025. So I noticed this morning as I was reviewing Jennifer's report that there's a $799 difference between Jennifer's numbers and my numbers. So Jennifer and I will figure out what that difference is, and we'll get that fixed.
That's us pulling the insurance and moving it to the 10 GE budget this year.
Okay, very well. So there you have the answer. The 2 increases that we've requested for our 2025 budget are the standard 3% increase provided to our Shawnee County employees, which would match what's being calculated for the balance of Shawnee County employees, and $153,000 increase in attorney fees for the assisted outpatient therapy treatment program. And as you recall, Judge Eberts and Bill Persinger with Vallejo went over that AOT plan and project in depth during last week's work session meeting. So the overall increase is approximately 5.6% with those two specific line item increases. I'd be happy to stand for any questions, or if you have questions of Judge Eberts, I know he would be happy to answer any as well.
Questions for Ms. Welch or Judge Eberts? Commissioner Mays?
So, on the clerk of the court, I noticed there's a revenue line on there that's gone down quite
Yes.
a bit over the last couple of years. Could you explain what that's all about?
Absolutely. So prior to the state implementing a statewide case management system where records could be searched for the entire state from one location, someone who's requesting records either had to go to each individual court, or they could set up an account with the Information Network of Kansas. That portal allowed them to search and view district court records statewide, but it came at a cost. There was a cost per search and a cost per view. It was typically, the last number I recall off the top of my head was $1 per search and $1 per view. A portion of that money was kept by the state to maintain that electronic portal, and a smaller portion was provided back to the counties, basically as free money, if you will. It was supposed to be used for court technology to support the local infrastructure needed to maintain those databases. So with the advent of Odyssey, which is a statewide case management system, the Information Network of Kansas and that accompanying income is no longer there because that portal no longer exists.
Okay.
And it was a sizable amount, and for Shawnee County, it was about, I think the average is probably about $15,000 a month. So if you take into account $1 per search and $1 per view, and we're only getting a portion of that money, there were a lot of searches taking place in Shawnee County.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. I might have just a question for the Chief Judge, if you have just.
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you. The question I have relates both to your budget as well as that of the district attorney. As chief judge and having just kind of the global view of the courts in Shawnee County, the district attorney's office talked about a shrinking number of attorneys, increased cost. Is that something that you're also experiencing as the chief judge when you're working on appointments on cases?
Yes, and I was shaking my head when I heard the district attorney make those comments. I was actually having another conversation with a person here in the gallery about that very topic as well. It's not just a Topeka or Shawnee County issue, it is a statewide and actually a national issue. The number of persons interested in becoming lawyers has been dropping. Law school enrollments have been dropping. And so in Shawnee County, we've seen fewer lawyers, especially after COVID with a lot of lawyers retiring. We've seen fewer and fewer lawyers willing to stay here. Typically it was lawyers fresh out of law school, they'd join a law firm, they would stay with that firm and grow. One of the ways they would grow would be to take contract work from the court and get that courtroom experience. And we are seeing less and less of those attorneys available for this type of contract work.
And so have you had difficulty in filling the appointments, whether it's for misdemeanor or juvenile cases, or in this case, looking at the AOT program?
Yes, so a good example would be I have an open contract right now that's advertised. We used to be able to advertise by word of mouth. Some of the lawyers that were providing contract services would talk with other lawyers amongst the bar and say, hey, there's a contract position open at Shawnee County District Court. If you're interested, get a hold of the chief judge. Over the last few years, we have had to advertise locally, the Topeka Bar Association, the law schools. We've had to expand out to outlying counties. We've gone so far as to Johnson County and to Missouri advertising for lawyers to take contract positions. And it's getting very difficult to find lawyers that will do that. The other thing to add to that is, and I think it's something that the Supreme Court will need to address at some point, but we have counties now competing with each other. So I had 2 lawyers on contract here in Shawnee County to do a certain kind of work, and they have now terminated their contract with us and accepted contracts in Franklin County and in Lyon County, because those counties will pay what Shawnee County is paying, but they receive a smaller caseload for the same type of work. Even when they factor in traveling, which a lot of it they're doing by Zoom now, when you factor that in, they're saying, look, I can do this work for the same pay or maybe better pay and have a smaller caseload in this other jurisdiction. So unless you're willing to pay more, we're going to go where the money is.
And that was going to be my last question, was with the addition of 2 additional magistrates over the last 2 years with Shawnee County, that's 2 more judges, have we seen an increase or decrease in our caseload as far as what you're seeing the courts handling?
We've seen an increase in caseload. Part of that, I think, is new cases being filed, obviously, but part of that is also the backlog that the district attorney mentioned as well. So for us, that's like an increased caseload because we're catching up on that backlog.
Okay. All right. Those were just kind of getting your perspective as the chief judge as to what things you're encountering. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Any other questions?
Questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to make one comment if I can. We're very appreciative of the renovations and remodels to the courthouse. I tell you that a lot, I know, but we thank you for the time and energy you've invested in the courthouse. It's appreciated.
And I know we'll all breathe a heavy sigh of relief when it's finished.
We will. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next we have, and I would also note that we did include drug courts, and that the drug court was included during that discussion with district court, and they are asking for the flat budget request, same as they have for last year. Next we have Department of Corrections, so turning it over to Director Cole.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I first want to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present our budget presentation and the information which we feel is a request that is very accurate to the needs that we have demonstrated through not only current trends but even past trends of spending, and also a fiscally responsible budget that comes with mandates statutorily. I do have our team from the Department of Corrections, all 4 of our deputy directors, who directly oversee the budget preparation in both the detention, operations, juvenile, and community corrections. To be respectful of Sheriff Hill's time, I'll jump right into it, that our budget this year is approximately of about a 4.5% increase, with the detention budget being a increase of about 1.8%. That goes directly to employee salaries, estimated insurance, anticipated increase, which we have seen in utilities, deferred maintenance on the Department of Corrections, audit expenses, memberships, and subscriptions. With food service, we're looking at approximately 5% increase, which has to do directly with the consumer price index of buying food and things like that, which is also statutorily required and a contract, and about 5.6% increase when it comes to our health care. When it comes to our health care, we are nationally accredited by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care. On the juvenile side, we operate in the top 1% to 2% in the United States when it comes to efficiency and operation. On the adult side, I feel we're just as good. We're not accredited as far as with ACA, but we are with the National Commission on Correctional Health Care. And I'm happy to say that we're looking at July 15th of having a work session to present the building plans for the behavioral health unit, which is drastically needed in our community. Overall, like I said, this is about a 4.5% increase. It's probably the lowest increase I've seen in my tenure of 13 or 14 years as a department director. Basically, it is what I would consider a flat rate because it just considers those of salaries and contracts. When it comes to our capital outlay, we have put on our capital outlay for many years the need for a DOC, the Sally Port and reception area. When the facility was opened in 1988, it was built for about $600 to $700 bookends for the juvenile side, maybe not that many, but only about 4,000 or 5,000. We're up to about 10,000 bookends. We have an average daily population well over 500. And I put that in to look at for discussion 2 or 3 years down the road. Adult Residential Center, this is a proven evidence-based practice that jurisdictions are going to reduce recidivism and also to expedite cases to keep them locally, and also to expand the success rate of those that are on community corrections and supervised probation to prevent them from going to prison. And that also was looking at discussion for 2 or 3 years down the road. Security upgrades is about 70,000 each year, which we do have every year. We work very closely with Mark Price and everybody when it comes to our IT and our security. So that is something that we try to budget every year for around $70,000. Replace workstations at the Department of Corrections. Some of the workstations are there as old as 1988. We do upgrade those as best we can or keep them maintained, but it is time to look at that. So we are looking at hopefully working with Jennifer that maybe this is something we could even find savings in our building fund, if possible, after we're looking at the locks on the doors, of something that maybe this could be used, those funds can be used for this rather than capital outlay. Inmate transport funds, we are still dealing with 2009, 2010 vehicles. We do put miles on it, not only to the courthouse, but we are transporting people to hospitals, doctor's appointments, even as far as KU Med Center, and we are assisting when we can other jurisdictions of picking up inmates. And then we need to start replacing deteriorating perimeter doors, which is probably one of the biggest mission critical issues that we have. That's a cost of about $66,000, which we would like to look at. That is when it comes to the detention budget. When it comes to the community corrections budget, as you know, statutorily we are required to match what the funds are from KDOC. The only funds that we are requesting is approximately $283,000. This is only to look at getting our salaries for our community corrections people that are close to what court services and probation are getting. I think Judge Edwards said it best, is people in our office are finding they can go to the same place, even in town, to get a lower caseload, non-felonies, and do it for more money. Our salaries are probably $4 less an hour than our competitors here in Shawnee County in the courthouse. And that's the only money we're asking for as far as when it comes to community corrections. If that money was awarded, that would get us closer to 45% of the match from Shawnee County to what is being added, because KDOC did increase their grant funds to Shawnee County. But Shawnee County, we serve one of the highest, if not the highest caseload in the state of Kansas. I have Major Steve Willis who could talk to that more if that was asked. But we are behind significantly when it comes to salaries. That with the extra money we're using to, we're looking at grants, second chance grants, which we're in the middle of that, adding mental health staff on site at the probation office, community corrections. We're working with to increase programs to meet the needs of our clients to successfully get them through there. So they're not adding on, committing more crimes, adding on to the caseload of what our district attorney has talked about, and we need to stop those that are on probation of reoffending and adding so they can get to that backload. So I do feel that the budget that we've asked is, I consider a flat budget when it comes to that. On the detention side, the request on community corrections is just our obligation to help us meet our obligation statutorily and get our staff up to what our local competitors here in our own courthouse are making. And I'll stand for any questions.
Couple of thoughts. I mean, if you have a workstation from 1988, considering the facility was built in 1988,
Yeah.
it might be time to shelve that one.
Yeah, we have, in the majority of the existing facility, almost all of them are the existing ones. In the new facility, or I would say the addition that was built in '98, those are the originals, and some of those through wear and tear. Addition of different IT, a tablet, and so those are getting to be pretty close to being makeshift. So we would like to piece those out over several years, obviously, and we would like to see the utilization of our, as much as we can, of the business, or the building code, or the building fund. We are using the reimbursement we're getting from KDADS. It was, I think, by home resolution, it went to 2024. I'm gonna be working with Jennifer to see if there can be a resolution that we continue to use that money that we're getting from KDADS to put into that fund to fund some of these things here. Because after 2024, it would just go to the general fund. We are asking for revenue, that we have increased the per diem rate to the city of Topeka, to the inmate crews. We are close to, we probably will stay about the same with federal inmates, but we're holding quite a few. So our revenue there, and we expect more revenue when it comes to, you will see here soon, possibly with our new contract with our inmate services.
And the other thing I might note is I was speaking yesterday with Mike Scribner of the Teamsters, and he noted that this is the highest level of employment he has seen at the Department of Corrections in at least maybe 20 years. And so I think this is a note to you and your staff, looking at a year ago where we were at with the Department of Corrections in vacancies and how many have been filled. And so just
they're working very hard. We're doing our best to enhance our training, to retain staff and make it a good, and we work very closely with Angela Lewis and their staff of helping us.
I think that's the word, is not just hiring, but retaining.
Yes.
And so I just, in today's market, being able to retain the staff that you have, and then being able to address those issues. So I'm going to turn it over. Commissioner Rippon, do you have questions?
I do. The mental health module, what's the timetable on it?
We're hoping, and well, I'm going to ask Tim Phelps. He's the project manager on this. I don't want to say something incorrectly, so I'm going to let him talk more specific to that. I know he has a meeting, I think, tomorrow. Or at least he said he did.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. Yeah, we are in the last lap to get things arranged so that we can have a presentation to you folks, if possible, on the 15th of July to try to let you see how we're expecting it to look. And we're closing in on a guaranteed maximum price, not to exceed $20 million. And so it's looking like we're going to make it. So that's the plan at present.
So what would be the timeline for completion?
Well, if everything goes as we're looking, we're going to try to start early in August to begin the construction, start bringing the machines in and doing the site grading and everything like that first. And then it'd be 18 to 20 months from there to be completed with the project.
So this budget, it really wouldn't affect operations next year, because you wouldn't be up and running at that time. Okay.
Right, we're looking at 2026 budget.
2026.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Commissioner, the 1988 date is the locking devices that are failing now more and more frequently that we need to change out.
Mhm. Just as a side note, in 1987 is when the Shawnee County Commission executed bonds for both the construction of the Stormont Vail Event Center and the Shawnee County Jail. And so having taken out $20 million for each of those two facilities, and so it's quite an endeavor.
Yeah, yes.
So, all right. Other questions for the Department of Corrections? Mr.
Real
Mays?
quick, I asked about revenue on the last item as well, but I see that your revenues are projected to be up, but the federal charges for services have dropped a lot. What's that?
We're totally dependent on them filling and bringing inmates to us. So a lot of times that we charge $100 a day set by our rules. They have a few other places that are lower. They have some that are only doing $40 a day, and I said no. But I work really closely with the Marshall Miller up there. We have seen a decrease in the federal inmates. A lot of it was dictated a little bit on our population. And we worked closely with them when our population was getting close to 600. We quite frankly was out of room to bring in a lot of federal inmates. And so our population has gone down, and I would expect us to see more federal inmates in that to go up, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And is part of that with the construction of new facilities? Osage County just completed their construction of their new jail where they were targeting federal inmates as
Yes.
one of their, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two things real quick, and nothing for Brian, that's all right. I was just gonna tell you, we are still fine tuning some of the revenue numbers, so we're still working through that as part of this working budget. But I also wanted to say that DA Kage was exactly right, and it was about $180-some thousand in 2023 that we spent for those 3 people.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right, next we have the sheriff.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Hill with Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for letting us present our budget here. So one thing's of note I would like to point out, considering the city has come off one of the most violent years I've seen in my 30-something years law enforcement. Here in the county, our Part 1 crime stats have continued to take a decline. I attribute that to the policing efforts, the proactivity, and the addition of the crime center, specifically this last year. But so that's a good sign for us out patrolling in the county. The partnership that we do have with the city, we share a lot of the same clientele, and being able to identify and do the proactive stops on these individuals. I know our deputies oftentimes have been able to stop individuals, and they'll have warrants and drugs and things heading out into the county, oftentimes with burglary tools, so they're preventing a lot of these crimes. So that's a good sign for us moving forward in the county. This is just an individual breakdown of some of the crimes that frequently occur in the county, and we've taken reductions, and we've seen overall decline in those categories as well. This is our inside of our real-time crime center. I think you gentlemen had the opportunity to tour that. I attribute this last year's reduction to this crime center actually being operational. These tag readers that are implemented around town, throughout honestly the whole country, having the ability to get alerts on those when stolen vehicles are moving, when wanted people are coming into our community. You know, it's been 2.5, 3 weeks ago, we got notified of a homicide suspect that had executed some people in Texas, had fled to Topeka. We was working with the marshals, ended up identifying an address, and that individual got stopped, headed to Wichita out of here. So the ability to identify wanted people that are moving across the country coming into our community is very valuable to us in law enforcement. Also, these tag readers in general that we've been able to put on the deputies' cars, they're a huge improvement for our ability to do law enforcement functions. Used to be, I'd drive around with a 10-page printout of several hundred cars that had been stolen, and I might remember the last 4 or 5. So you're looking for the one stolen last week, and it's very hard to drive, look through that sheet of paper. Well, now these tag readers are just reading those tags, and you'll get an alert when it hits that stolen car. Allows our deputies to drive, do better policing functions, be safer when they do drive the vehicles, and that's impacting. A lot of what initially wanted me to start down this road a couple of years ago, we started getting into the school violence and all the school shootings. That Uvalde, when that happened, that put all law enforcement on a whole nother page of alert. What can we do for school and public safety? This crime center has the ability, and we are interacting with a lot of schools in the county. They're coming on board with, if there is a activity at that school and they hit 911, those cameras flash up. So we have the ability to see what's going on, who that suspect is, what that suspect is armed with, and track them through that facility as we respond to incidents like that. Those seconds are matter. It's life-saving. And on the other side of that, it helps also with a lot of these swatting calls. People that are just calling in randomly wanting to have bad incidences with force on force, with cops running into a school thinking there's an active shooter. Well, same cameras come up and we can identify nobody's there and have a more tempered response into those situations and make it safer for the people in school and our officers as well. So on that side of things, this is the way law enforcement, I believe, will be moving in the future. I think Shawnee County.
We're going to take just a brief moment to stand. We're at an hour,
Okay.
so we have a standing policy. So you can keep going on your presentation, though.
Okay.
It just gets a little
All
bit more, keep the blood flowing.
Well, I believe this is the direction law enforcement is going to be moving in the future. Shawnee County, having foresight to be on the front end of that, is going to benefit everybody who lives here in this community. One of the good things about this is we've been able to build this center out with grant money. So it's not been at the cost of the citizens of Shawnee County. However, we've built this center out and now we need to man it. And that is one of the requests is just, I was asking for additional manpower to man this center. Another advantage of this is through the public safety with the missing children and the silver alerts, we've been able to actually find dozens of people that have just driven away, don't know where they're at. They hit a tag reader. We've been able to locate these individuals and get them safely home. So huge benefit to Shawnee County. PD is partnering with us in this endeavor and tapping into a lot of their resources throughout the city as far as the tag readers and cameras that come online with this center. So, Sheriff's Office expenses, here's historically. As you can see, we have tried to keep this at the same percentage. 90% of our budget is payroll, 7% services, contractual obligations, keeping the lights on. And we have a 3% operational budget. And honestly, that's what I'm trying to fight for, is to keep that 3% operational budget and not let that diminish. That operational budget allows us to do the proactive narcotics enforcement, the policing operations enforcement, that I believe has got us on this lower trend of crime throughout the county. This slide here seems a little busy, but I think it does explain, as I can imagine this 7.61% looks a little high. 5.1, maybe I can't see that without my glasses. 2.28% of that is payroll increases, and I will say, I actually will commend you gentlemen for having the foresight to stay updated with the salaries for the policing, to be quite honest with you. We're in a very competitive environment to keep cops in our agencies on the street. Honestly, I think a lot of these young cops are almost like travel nurses because, you know, Kansas City down the road, 30% across the board increase. If you can make 30% more driving down the road, you know, an hour, a lot of these young guys, about everybody has a lateral. If you got 5 years or less, you can go anywhere you want as a police officer. So being able to keep salaries competitive so that we can keep, hire and retain these guys is so important in law enforcement fields today. There's less and less people going into these academies. I know when I went through the academy, when I got hired in '91, there was 300 something people that took that test to be an officer. you're lucky if you get 20 people walking the door to even test out these days. So it's a very competitive world to keep law enforcement officers employed and keep them in your agencies. The other number that I think is fairly relevant on this, as you gentlemen remember last year, we ended up in a unique position where we was able to ask for a little over 600,000 less in our budget last year because of vacancy credits that we had. And we went through a process where we pre-purchased things so that we could lower our ask last year. We have since filled a lot of those slots, but if you deduct that money and the wages, our accountant seems to think our true net is about 2.73 of increase. Pretty busy slide, but that does break down a lot, because last year we had prepaid for the fuel, the ammo, the tires, a lot of the essential things that allowed us to drop that budget request from last year. So, and on to our CIP requests.
Before we get there, if we can go back, just Sheriff, I've got a question on.
Yes, sir.
On your staffing, as it stands, I know you have listed in the slide that there's 37 total vacant positions, and you're wanting to fill those vacant positions. Where do we, I mean, is that established? I guess, talk to me a little bit more about the vacancies. When we came over on Monday and spoke with you, I thought that my impression was that we were in a position of being much higher staffed and closer to being fully staffed, especially as compared to the Topeka Police Department, which I think they are hitting, you indicated maybe even 48 or so vacancies at this time.
Yeah, so that is true as it relates to law enforcement. We're at, well, if you count the undersheriff and I's, we're 121. Yeah, we're at 114 right now, and we just put another group through testing. I believe that we can fill these slots in this upcoming year. So we're only 5 or 6 deputies short overall. These other jobs are civilian jobs
Okay.
that, frankly, we've struggled to fill some of these for a few years now.
I just wanted to take a moment and kind of highlight that as to what those vacancies are, if those were law enforcement positions or if those are civilian positions. Now, as far as dispatch, I mean, dispatch has always been a difficult area to fill. It's a very demanding job with a lot of that's going on there. How are we doing on dispatch and manning that area?
You know what, I happen to have Director Rabb here. Would you like to step up here and answer this, Director Rabb? They've made some ground initially, and then, you know, 1 or 2 people retire or move on. That makes a huge difference in the dispatch manpower.
Yeah, as the sheriff said, last count, Commissioner, we were roughly at 24. Those numbers fluctuate greatly over there, but that's kind of where we've been at a somewhat of a standing number for a while. The positions of the CS1 have been the ones that are primarily there that are hard to fill, as well as a couple of our supervisor positions. So
Okay.
we definitely do need to start getting more numbers in there.
So out of those 37 total vacancies that the sheriff is speaking to, are the number of those within your area, is the dispatch, or is it, again, other areas?
Well, I would estimate that of those vacancies, 5 to 8 total would be in the communications division.
All right. Again, I know that we've had a lot of energy and work, working even with Washburn Tech in specialized programs, and again, recruiting, and again, knowing where we need to make the investments to get fully staffed. That's been a big commitment from the commission. Other questions regarding staffing for the sheriff before we get into CIP? All right, take it away then.
Fleet refresh, as you know, this is a big county, 556 square miles. Every year, we drive 1.8 million miles in vehicles. they've asked for 10 new vehicles since I've been here. That's just their maintenance, a year to keep this fleet up and running. Service life of these vehicles are approximately 8 years and about 135,000 miles. The MDT refresh, these are pretty expensive computer units that are housed in these cars, but honestly, these things are essential in today's law enforcement community to operate. This is where all the alerts come from the tag readers. A lot of the communication from dispatch is coming over the computers in the cars now. They were fairly pricey, $5,000 a unit. The current cost to replace 90 of those units is $450,000. And again, they're reaching their end of their life expectancy. The range target refresh. This is a picture of the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office range. It's actually pretty nice. It was nicer than the police department range. So but the target system out here, which is several years old, it's probably since the range was built, is breaking down. It's not functioning properly. You can't get replacement parts for it. This is a very important part of law enforcement training to put people in live fire situations, interacting on the range with a target system that's fluid enough that it's able to do a lot of different training scenarios for our deputies. And the garage equipment technology, asking for $100,000 here for the upgraded things that they need. I would like to note that any of this money spent here would be transferable if and when we get the garage people moved over to the new site. So we won't be leaving that money on the table behind. And that's it, gentlemen, and I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for the sheriff? Commissioner Mays?
So those, I think you call them MDTs. I assume that's something we're gonna send out for bid, and not just sole source.
And we'll obviously follow all the purchasing rules and policies that are in place for that.
Okay.
And that cost is an approximate. I can tell you that it's fairly accurate within a few $1,000s.
And that's to replace all of them? This is not like a phased in, like
No,
what
that-
we've done with the radios in the past?
That is to replace all of our MDTs. When we bought our last ones, we bought, I believe, 80, and 90 will get us more in, like our civilian process servers are starting to use them. Very integral for pretty much anything in law enforcement right now. That's why the number increased a little bit from the last purchase that we did.
Remind me again, when was the last purchase?
Approximately 4 years ago.
Okay,
I don't remember that.
all right, thank you.
Questions? All right, thank you, Sheriff. That brings us to the end of Group 1. We're going to take just a 5-minute break. So those of you that were part of Group 1, you're able to leave, and then those of you that are part of Group 2, you're able to slide in. So thank you. We're going to just take a quick 5-minute break. Ready, Bill?
Did you close your laptop while you had a pencil inside it?
Who's first?
No, I dropped it.
Oh, okay.
I was getting out of my car outside here, like, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and I just dropped it and it fell right in the sidewalk.
Rats.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started now on resume our budget discussions. We've had a request to jump a little bit out of order, so we're going to take the Fair Association up first. If you'll come up to the podium and do a presentation.
Good morning. My name is Mary Beth Showalter, and I'm the treasurer of the Shawnee County Fair Association. And we have Ashley Mingarelli with us. She's also a board member. So we're going to be very short and quick on our budget request. That basically we look at the budget based on what we expect this year is going to be and make just some slight modifications to that. The main changes that are happening is that we've asked Stormont Vail what they expect our costs to be next year, and they've told us a $5,000 increase. So we have put that in the budget. We always put in the budget the possible additional rental space to show that that could happen if the fair continues to grow. We don't expect that to happen next year, so we have not requested those funds, but we have put them in just as a FYI. Some of the other increases that we are expecting is things that, for example, fair insurance that just continues to go up a little bit every year. Some of the expenses that are going up are actually good. We hope for more premiums to be paid out, more ribbons to be bought, because that means more people participating in the fair. So we anticipate those and make slight increases to those. So those are pretty much what the changes are. I'm going to have Ashley talk a little bit about the livestock buyers dinner and why that shows a bigger increase this year too.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Ashley Mingarelli. Met you guys before previously. The ways that we are trying to, again, incorporate more sponsorships into the county include thanking our buyers that come and purchase our 4-H'ers animals. We are trying to do more appreciation to our sponsors, as we don't have much to offer them during the fair because we can't name buildings after them or areas or different types of donations that they've made. So we have a dinner after the fair. This year it'll be August 24th is our projected date for that. We will invite all of the sponsors for the fair to that dinner and thank them for their support of the 4-H'ers. So the fair board will put on that event in August, but like I said, we think it's August 24th. So we think it's important that we acknowledge them, and we will have youth there to make sure that they are there to appreciate the people who are supporting them from our community.
Okay. Questions?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
We do have a 4-H'er here that would like to present you with something today.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, I'm Cooper Mingarelli, and to encourage you guys to come to the fair, I'm a member of the Indian Creek 4-H Club and on the Shawnee County Youth Committee Council for the pancake feed, and we brought you guys some tickets to the pancake feed today.
Sounds great. We always appreciate being able to support the fair and the Fair Association. It's a great organization, not just for kids outside of the city of Topeka, but all kids. They have a number of activities, and so I would, again, encourage to grow the 4-H, the fair. Its extension office is just down at the same campus where Stormont Vail Event Center is at, and so 17th and Western, and so, again, encourage people to get involved in the fair. You don't have to be part of 4-H to be part of the fair. So, all right, very good. Thank you. Jump around to emergency management. Dusty, take it away.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dusty Nichols, Emergency Management. Get this slide up real quick. This morning, we are just kind of going to go through our mission real quick. You guys are fully aware of what we do. But just as a reminder, we're doing 24-hour operation to reduce loss of life and property in Shawnee County. And then Of course, we're adopting that whole community concept, trying to work with all of our partners through preparedness, response, recovery, and protection mitigation. So those are the basics, the basis for pretty much everything we do. And we really increase that unity of effort through working through county leadership, city township leaderships, and organizational partners that we have, as well as other departments. So that's the basic line of our job. And the overall goal, of course, is to keep everybody safe. I mean, long story short, I don't want to drag this out too long, because again, you guys know this, but we base everything on life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. This is a big presentation. You've seen this before. All the things that we do, we could focus down on anything you wanted to, if you had any questions. But obviously, we're looking at our budget requests today. So really quickly, everything you're looking at, all of our increases are pretty much related to personnel and payroll increases, with a couple of exceptions. We do have the MCV, which Nelson will talk about here in a little bit, as far as the going half with the warranty with Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. And then some of our supplies and materials, you'll see a $7,000 increase. I wanted to mention this, but in particular, it's regarding the badging system, as far as the county ID badges. Since that inception, we've been incurring that cost in our budget, with few exceptions. There's been a couple of times where we've had to increase a lot of those badges because of contractors are trying to use them for time cards, etc. And we've had a couple of larger departments purchase a box of cards. The thing about these cards, they're very, they're protected, and they're done sequentially. So if we examined maybe having different departments buy some, but the minimum amount you can buy is 100, and it doesn't work for a register of deeds, for example. When talking to audit finance in previous years and then following up, we think the best and most efficient way is we just take it in our cost, and so we're just asking for the $7,000 to keep up that badging and the supplies and everything else, and that way we can keep control of the sequence of the numbers. We do the badging system anyway, and it's just the most efficient. It takes away any responsibility for any other departments other than getting the badges done. So they are controlled. We consider them a controlled item with the Sheriff's Office. They're key fobs, basically. Not all of them, but some of them are key fobs. So they are mechanical. They're equal almost to a mechanical key, except for it tracks who goes in and out. So there is a system that goes with them. They're not just a plastic card. There's a whole process that goes with that. So we think that's better kept with one department versus spreading that out, and that's what that $7,000 increase for the supplies are. The other increase, the bigger one that you see, I know it kind of sticks out when you're looking at the increases by department. With our smaller budget, the 25% does look like a huge increase. But what we're looking at is a new position. We're requesting a new position. We are out consistently looking for grants, and I do want to just kind of bring up on the slide here on the right hand side, you'll see the grant acquisition since 2019. We're pretty good at finding grants. That's about $1.5 million that we brought in the county since 2019 through resources. We also have the Emergency Management Program grant, which does go to a position, and we have other grants that we've been able to get over the past couple of years to apply for the projects that we do. We are unsuccessful so far in finding another grant that we can apply to a position. So we are coming back and requesting that increase for that position. And that position would be an emergency management specialist that would be dedicated during the daytime hours. And as you are well aware, sometimes we're working overnights depending on storms or a situation. This person would not be that exempt employee. They would be daytime hours, so we would have some kind of continuity during the day when some of us are trying to get rest, etc. They would also be an emergency management specialist in that they would be assisting in all the other different sections of our organization. So really focusing on LEPC, Local Emergency Planning Committee, Tier 2 hazmat requirements, exercise, all the requirements that we're required to do in support of COOP and COG, which we're struggling, to be honest with you, we're struggling to get all that stuff done, especially this year with the storms. We've been quite a bit of an increase and storm activity, and then exercises that have been required through CMS. There's other requirements that from our partners that need assistance from us, not to mention what's going on with maybe a township or a city that we need to assist here and there. And those requests have increased as well. So that position would absolutely help out there. And after we did the organizational study here in the past few months, we realized that we had a few positions on our books which we removed because they were all interims. So we removed all those positions that weren't filled, save one, our logistics person, who we might see a retirement maybe in the next 5 years. So this new position would also kind of be training for that position, so we do have some kind of continuity going that way as well. So I can stand for any questions before I bring Nelson up to talk about the capital outlay, because it's very specific.
Questions? No? All right.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So can you explain what the MCV warranty is again?
I'm gonna bring Nelson up.
Perfect
Specifically to talk
segue
about.
then.
I did fail to mention, we do have one capital outlay project that I can just briefly mention, is that the replacement vehicle of our 211 Tahoe. We're finding those former law enforcement KBI vehicles work really well for us. We don't have to outfit them as much. So that would be a replacement vehicle on the capital outlay when you see it come up. So I'm going to go ahead and let Nelson talk about capital outlay.
Nelson Castile, Emergency Management Director. Sarah, you had a question?
I was just asking about the MCV warranty increase for this year.
Okay, well, the increase, it's not an increase, but it is, those were piled in with another.
We used a grant fund to pay for it last year.
Yeah, so we used a grant fund to pay for it last year. This year, we don't know, or for 25, we don't know that's going to be available. The warranty, and it gives us a long list of things on the vehicle, and what that was in our agreement when we bought it from City of Topeka, we were able to maintain everything pretty much turnkey from them to us as long as we signed a 5-year warranty agreement with Nomad. We are coming up on year 4 of that, so we have 2 more years, and Director Rabb, myself, and Chuck Preedy are looking at whether or not we still need that or not when it comes up at 5 years. So we were locked in. It's between 16,000 and 18,000. I don't recall the number, and we share that with the sheriff's office, and we each pay a half of that.
So the increase is just was previously covered by grant, and now you're unsure if the grant will pick it up. So if the case the grant doesn't pick it up, you're including it within the budget.
Yep, I'm getting nods behind me, so that's a good answer.
All right. Other questions? Then as to your capital outlay?
Okay, on the capital outlay, you're gonna see a couple of things different, plus you're gonna see that there's probably a lot of requests, and I'm just briefly gonna go through them. Jennifer, when she sent out the budget thing, we're working on that 5-year plan. We're putting it out there so you're aware of it, just like we did last year, that there are some items. We have a lot of technology in our job. We have also, because of the ambulance and EMS and fire, we've also partnered with Director Rabb and Sheriff Hill and Under Sheriff Hubler on some of the capital requests that are going to be county-wide, and we can relate them back to the continuity of operations, continuity of government, plus getting ambulances and fire trucks and police officers and everybody to the right locations. So the first, I'll just go in the order. I don't know what order you all have them in, but the AES encryption system-wide, we all know that cybersecurity is really important. So for 2029, we're looking to get the higher level of encryption across the county here. We're now using the Motorola proprietary, which I'm not going to talk anything about how secure it is because I really don't know for sure. But they would like the federal government. Most of us are going to the AES 256 something, and Mark Price ain't here, so I can't lean on him to tell me what I actually said was correct. There's also the 5 years out here is the prime site virtualization. We talked a little bit about the cloud and some other things. Right now, that's just an upgrade that we have $14 to $16 million radio system that's coming up on a decade old. And so there's some things that we're going to have to replace. That's going to have a county-wide effect, especially for ambulance and first responders out there, which is really where I have big concerns. We got to have those folks talking. The automatic paging, we have moved that back. It's still on there for 4 years, but we may have a solution that is more copacetic with what we want to do, but we do want to keep it on there because it is definitely a force multiplier in the dispatch centers that we have seen that have had it. It frees up considerable time. The backhaul switches, this is, if you don't, these were combined from sheriff to us. This is the thing that gives us the redundancies, gives us the ability to talk from just about anywhere in the county to anywhere in the state or even anywhere in the county just off a portable. And this is how we get business done. The EOC radio refresh, we're in our final 3 years here of getting all of our radios up into the 21st century here. So we're still using a lot of stuff that originally came with the system. Some of them on the previous system we were able to upgrade, but we are gradually getting that. We are seeing some benefits. In answer to a question I believe one of the commissioners asked a year or two back when we were replacing radios, we are not scrapping those. We are providing those to our partners, and we have seen out of the 7-county region that we've helped, we have seen fantastic results from that. So, and it has taken a lot of stuff off of our dispatchers. It's also allowed us to help dispatch in the incident command in the middle there, where we've had some really seamless incidents. So, the EOC vehicle sustainment that he mentioned, there's just 2 more years on there, and if you got any more questions on that, I'll let Dusty answer those, but that was part of it. The regional equipment sustainment, we, as Dusty indicated, I believe we probably have just in emergency management, not counting the rest of the county, we have probably about $950,000 worth of resources that were provided by DHS through the Northeast Regional Homeland Security Council, and there's some sustainment that comes with that. During COVID, we had other things to do, but it's we need to get some tires, and there's some other fancy words that Scott Steele uses that we need in there. We also want to look at maybe a staging or response facility. We have terrific partners. We have the Expo folks, the MTAA, Topeka Metro, Topeka Police, the Sheriff's Office, fire departments, Public Works, where they allow us to store equipment, and that's spread all out. Scott Steele just checking all the equipment on just once around for a month could take a day or so because he has to go to different sites, and that's something that we want to consider. MTAA, I believe they are building a new hangar, something big out there, so we're going to move our stuff out of a certain secured area into another secured area, but we want to see going forward here in the next couple of years if we can't work on some building space or work with you folks on that. On the for 2025, those all that I mentioned except the radio refresh. Radio refresh would be 2025. The others are out there 4 or 5 years, and I'm not going to belabor that. The TCV, we are hopefully that 55,000 right there is going to be the last thing that we have to connect us. We bought the consulates, which they are somewhere west of Japan right now, and we hope to get here by Christmas again this year. Being able to tie those in, as well as some of the IP radio, I don't know how to say it. You can talk to the radio off your phone, basically is what it is. That's a simple way to put it. And we are in the final stages of getting that on that machine. In my reports for ambulance and anything, we have a scarcity of resources. the counties right now all depend on each other for mutual aid. We even have some departments in the county that just for everyday calls are dependent on mutual aid. And so we need to be able to communicate with those folks and keep that up, which is part of the job. The EOC, COOP and COG, continuity of operations, continuity of government. We've got some computers and some other technology down there that is coming up on, some of it's 5 to 6 years, and we've got some that's 11 to 12 years right now. We've got some really good use out of them, but we're going to want to be refreshing some of that. Probably the biggest one is our sirens. We've got just under 70 some sirens out there. They all work via a radio signal. Thanks to solid waste 10 or 12, 13 years ago, and some other folks, we were able to pull radios off the trash trucks and the recycling trucks, put them on the county system. We took those radios, we've used them on our siren system because it was cheap and efficient. They worked. A good portion of those radios are probably 15 years old, and I could even go as far, I saw some Model 1s, which means they were probably put together in 1998. So they're getting a little bit long. They're on 24/7. They sit there in the boxes. They don't do a lot of communicating. Some of them only communicate once or twice a day when we do the polls, but we probably need to replace those. We've worked with a couple of vendors. The siren vendor, we had a great radio, and then the radio quit getting made. So we went to another radio and went, this is fantastic, and they said, nope, we're done with that one. So we're hoping that what we can get is going to be a compromise in between them. We won't need the Cadillac of radios now because of how technology works. Those data packs don't require the big honking radios as they used to. So we don't need as many features, but we do want to do that and encrypt those signals just like a lot of it's going. And then our outdoor warning siren program, we've got a new school going on out there at 29th and Auburn, I think is where it is. So that's an outdoor area that we're going to want to maybe put some sirens. We've got some other outdoor areas that are developing that we could want some sirens in, so we want to keep putting those in. We've got some projects that we want to do near downtown and some other areas where we've heard, hey, we may need sirens here. And also, the bad news is some of our sirens could be reaching the 20-year mark now themselves. Some of them are some of the originals that they were put in at the end of the last century, and so we need to be looking towards that. And then the last one was we've got a couple of locations that we have backup centers, and one of the things that these backup centers, and this one is out, I believe 2026, is some messaging boards, some of them that we can use for situational updates and some staging areas and some resources. So that's all I have for you. I went as quick as I could. Does anybody have any questions?
You're doing great, Nelson. Questions for Nelson on the capital outlay? I appreciate all of it, Nelson. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, sir.
Any additional questions, sir?
Any other questions for Dusty?
No.
All right. Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we now are moving to Safe Streets.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mandy Chikansky. I'm the Executive Director at Prevention and Resiliency Services, and I'm here to speak about our Safe Streets program, which is overseen by our agency. Over the past 3 years that I've been at PARS, Safe Streets has been a question of how can we look at revising this program and bringing it to a more modern time and address more of the challenges that are facing our community in this day and age. And earlier this year, sometimes you try things and they don't work, and then you try things again and they don't work, and then sometimes something magically appears. And I think we're there. So today, I want to talk to you a little bit about a partnership that I believe will help us to revamp Safe Streets in a manner that's going to be most effective moving into 2024, 2025, in the future, and addressing some of the challenges that our community is facing. A team, many of which are in this room, representing various agencies, organizations, and community members across Shawnee County, began meeting weekly to address community violence and to explore current initiatives and opportunities. The Community-Inspired Violence Intervention Coalition has proactively organized, they're in short CIVIC, has proactively organized and strategized the launch of an evidence-based, community-led violence intervention program utilizing a public health approach. Their team is working with the Centers for Disease Control and the National Association of City and County Health Officials, after being one of 4 cities nationwide awarded grant funding and extensive technical assistance in developing the core strategy for our community. Part of the work that has been done is to collect feedback from communities in Topeka and Shawnee County that are really identified as our highest risk communities. And what they have done is gather feedback from community members who live in those neighborhoods most impacted by utilizing a survey and community town hall meetings. More than 60 community members in Central Park and more than 30 in Hillcrest and Oakland neighborhoods gathered to brainstorm community health, strengths, and barriers, and it was not surprising to see many overlapping concepts, such as a desire to have more community-based events, getting to know their neighbors, trust building, and safety. This highlights the importance of community engagement. Members of my staff working on Safe Streets had been meeting with a very wise PhD student in this room, kind of talking about what we might be doing and how we might improve the work that we're doing in Safe Streets. And through that work, we had started talking about Block Talks. And Block Talks is a grassroots initiative aimed at fostering community connections and enhancing neighborhood cohesion. This program encourages residents to gather informally on their blocks, on their porches, in their yards, maybe even a living room, to engage in meaningful conversations about their community, share concerns, and brainstorm solutions. This idea is to create a relaxed and familiar setting where neighbors can discuss issues related to safety, health, and overall well-being, thereby building trust and solidarity. By empowering residents to take an active role in shaping their environment, Block Talks seek to promote a sense of ownership and collective responsibility, ultimately contributing to a safer and more connected community. Most recently, members of my team have started to attend the second set of town hall meetings where Civic has started speaking about the work that they did with information they collected during the first town halls, and talking about initiating the Block Talk approach. But central to that initiative are identifying conveners in the neighborhood who are community members identified during these town hall meetings who are really well embedded in their community and they would be taking on the role of coordinating and facilitating these informal gatherings. By leveraging their local knowledge and relationships, conveners help to ensure that meetings are relevant and inclusive, addressing the specific needs and interests of their neighbors. This approach not only empowers residents to take an active role in shaping their environment, but also promotes a sense of ownership and collective responsibility. Ultimately, Block Talks aim to build a safer, more connected community through grassroots engagement and collaboration. The collaboration with the effort to begin the community-led engagement while Civic is developing the foundation of a new program is the type of effort that makes our community stronger. When we work together with these unified approaches to address violence and public health, this assures the continuity of care and encourages trust building with our neighbors. We appreciate your continued support and the opportunity to walk with outstanding partners at all levels of the county. Every county agency we have interacted with has been phenomenal in the support that they have offered PARS. And we thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly about our goals moving forward with Civic and safe streets in the future. And I have a number of members of Civic here, and we can talk a little bit more about any questions you might have and what some of that work has looked like just honestly within the past week. There's been significant things happening, so it's a little bit about what we're wanting to do.
So in the past, Safe Streets has really been, I think, more focused in on your neighborhood watches, your monthly meetings, National Night Out, of course, I mean, with PARS and everything that Prevention and Recovery Services does. So this is really adding a whole new chapter to Safe Streets. Is that accurate?
I believe it's accurate. I think we're going to try to do some of the things that we have always done, but we're finding that those things aren't they're not as sought out. And so how can we keep moving in an area that needs addressed, but aligns with the work that we do at Safe Streets? And this just seems like the perfect fit.
So I know that in your presentation, you talked about block talks, and as opposed to the letter, it talks about porch talks. That threw me for a minute.
Yes, that magnificent name literally came about like last Thursday. So yeah, so I apologize.
I figure it's the same thing. So
same thing. We just
it is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So
just changed the. I thought block talk sounded a little better.
Civic. I mean. Right now they're gathering the information to help. That's, as I understand, the goal of Civic is to gather information to make recommendations. Is that accurate, or did I misread that and misunderstand?
Danielle, do you want to kind of add on so I don't speak out of turn?
So Civic has I know we presented here before, so we're in the gathering phase. Eventually, this organization will kind of be an ecosystem of sorts addressing community violence with that public health approach. So many county agencies who have presented here today are part of Civic, as well as many community members. So, you know, really being able to increase that funding to all of these social service agencies that are assisting in that process is really beneficial. And the eventual goal with some secured funding that we have will be to actually employ and have programs of trusted messengers within communities that are most impacted by violence, using a nationally recognized program to provide the training and technical assistance that's needed. While we're still in that phase of gathering the data, information, and bringing that technical assistance and training, we didn't want to lose the engagement process that we had begun with neighborhoods. And so we started gathering the feedback of not only all those number data, but the data of community members who are experiencing the violence. This was a really amazing opportunity that came about that had started even late last year of being able to continue the engagement, build the trust that is really needed to make this ecosystem of resources and assistance possible, which is really the goals that we kind of outlined the first couple of years anyways, is trust building. That was some of the feedback that we received from the survey that we gave community members, that one of the #1 responses for not accessing resources in the community was lack of trust. So this type of partnership and programming will allow that to happen while we're still doing all the work to lay the foundation for future programming.
Okay. Thank you. And I do note that there's a number of civic members here today, and you've got a full house, and so.
They're pretty great, and I have participated in one town hall last Saturday, and it just was really inspiring. And I've walked and done some delivering of flyers, also very inspiring. And there's been some results just as we unfortunately experienced a loss in that neighborhood over the weekend. There was immediate action that took place to try to support the neighborhood. And we really want to be a part of that. And so however we can partner up with the work that they are starting and we can walk alongside to support, we would really like to make that the focus of what we do going forward. So.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you all. Okay, we have the Stormont Vail Event Center is scheduled up next.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kellen Seitz, Stormont Vail Event Center and OP Group, Venue Management. As we talk through the budgeting process for 2025, we have noted and experienced a few things, right, within our industry. One, the rising costs of goods and services and the increased costs in artist fees have adjusted and changed the landscape a little bit about how we operate our business. In addition to that, good news and better news for the facility is that we've increased our ability in partnerships with promoting agencies and promoter groups that are bringing pieces of business and content to the facilities. The great thing about that is it allows us to, one, generate more content for the facility, and two, offset a lot of the financial liability, about 50% of the financial liability on any events that take place that are co-promoted efforts. The only downside to that is that it reduces the net financial revenue on those events as we also share half of the financial insecurity. We also only share half of the financial benefit on some of those pieces of content. One thing we have noticed, and it's been mentioned a few times in our advisory board meetings, is the success that we've had with certain types of business, multi-day shows, some of our non-traditional type content, not the glamorous and exciting pieces of business like concerts, but things like demolition derbies, rodeos and or bull riding events, multi-day sporting events, things like 3-day cornhole tournaments and 3-day wrestling tournaments and volleyball and cheer and dance competitions. I'm happy to report that we have started to increase the level of bookings and the number of pieces of that business activity within the facility, both for 2024 and as we approach and look forward into 2025 and 26. So those are exciting pieces of forecasted business on our end. But as we look at the budget, we did experience our most challenging year of operation in 2023 last year. Some of that was correlated to event revenues, not hitting budgeted expectations and taking financial losses on those pieces of business. And then some of that is also correlated with the rising costs of labor rates, third-party contracted service suppliers, some of our maintenance and equipment rates, and the changes in those elements as well. So I did want to give a highlight and a shout out to some good pieces of content that we have coming up, some of which have been announced recently. We lost our anchor tenant team this year with our indoor football program. However, for 2025, We have been able to secure 4 pieces of hockey content business to come back into the market. Totally different division and level of hockey than has been in the building for quite some time. We have Federal Prospects Hockey League contracted for 4 exhibition games to take place the last 2 weekends in January of 2025. The exciting piece about that is we are contracted with an ownership entity that owns a multiple number of teams in that league, and dependent on how those events perform, we hope to be able to move that piece of business more on a consistent level into the 2026 timeframe, with the ability to potentially have hockey back in the market and in the community for some time. In addition to that, we've been very active working with our partners in the marketplace, both at Visit Topeka, but also the Topeka Area Sports Commission, on bid activations for youth sports and or collegiate sport activities. We are in a bid year for the USA Wrestling Kansas chapter for Kansas Kids Wrestling Tournament. We do have 1 year left on that contract for 2025. But we are going to be bidding on a 5-year bid cycle beginning in 2026 for that piece of business, and are actively pursuing that and having ongoing negotiations and discussions with that organization. In addition to that, we bid on 3 other pieces of USA Wrestling business for youth wrestling participation in the facility that would take place from we have holds that would span from 2025 all the way through 2030. In addition to that, we've submitted bids with Visit Topeka on NAIA Cheer and Dance Competition, National Cheer and Dance Competition. I don't know if I should report, but I'm happy to report we have a call with them tomorrow, so the bid process on that is moving forward. I don't know how successfully that will be, but we certainly hope and aim to put our best foot forward to see if we can gain that piece of business for the coming years. But also how that correlates into the budget perspective as a whole is our focus as we continue to move forward in the years to come, have been around multi-day pieces of event content in youth sports activation. So you'll see as we get into our CIP requests for this year, a big piece of the focus for our CIP requests is surrounded around our current basketball and volleyball court infrastructure. In addition to that, the acquisition of sport court surfaces that can be laid out in Exhibition Hall and Landon Arena for increase in activity in primarily the volleyball space and the indoor basketball space, and the youth sports metric that coincides with that for the next number of years. We had the pleasure of hosting you at your work session last month to come to the facility, do a walkthrough, and talk about the activation of sport court in the facilities and what that would mean, both from a financial benefit perspective and from a return on investment perspective for that sport court system. We have been able to find some additional options for that sport court system in the space that have been able to reduce some of that cost. And we'll walk through that as I get to the CIP project, but there's a lot of pieces of that project that we can either piecemeal or reduce some of the elements out of that capital or CIP request to get that number down, but still be able to produce the content that we hope to produce by having the sport court in the facility. So I'm happy to address and talk through any of the budgeting process questions or any of the budget adjustment questions, and then I'll move into the CIP project.
Questions regarding the budget? No? Okay. Okay. So I mentioned a little bit here, and we've talked about it pretty significantly. The sport court system, what we are requesting for in our CIP request, and I apologize, it looks like it was
a bit convoluted when we submitted it, and there were multi-factors and components of this request, but I can assure you it is not $1.3 million. It is, there are two separate options. There's a low tier and a high tier option on the sport court itself. So for just talking about the sport court, just the court infrastructure that's laid down in Exhibition Hall and Landon Arena, the lower component sport court, or the lower tier component sport court, which when I say lower component, essentially all that means is that it's almost identical to the same surface as the higher component. It just doesn't have the wood look surfacing on top, right? It is more of a colored surface, so you think like a black or a gray sport court surface, as opposed to a sport court that would look like a traditional basketball or volleyball floor. So that sport court surface on the lower tier would be $276,880, and that's for about 41,000 square feet of that sport court system. On the higher tier, as we get more into the wood look with a little bit different finish on it, we're looking at a purchase price of around $407,000, $492,000. The difference between the two is essentially just the look, but also there's a slight difference in the texturized material on top. The wood surface plays more specific to basically just volleyball and basketball. The lower tier allows for the use, not that we couldn't on the other surface as well, but it allows us to expand into things like pickleball and some other areas of opportunity that could use the courts there. So we would probably make a request to lean more towards the solid colored surface as opposed to the wood veneer surface for that sport court as we move through that process. In addition to that, the basketball floor repairs and renovations and resurfacing of our current court are anticipated to be around $60,000. So that's a court we currently own and house at the facility, but as you are aware, and our advisory board and some of the users of that court are aware, it is a bit old, and it's in need of some repairs and resurfacing and refurbishment. So that cost is around $60,000. Additionally, we would like to acquire 2 new basketball goals for our current basketball court that would be refreshed and upgraded with newer time clocks, better pneumatics in operating, and transportation casting devices on the bottom that allow us to transport those goals a little bit easier than utilizing pallet jacks and forklifts and things like that. So those basketball goals, the 2 new goals, would also be a cost estimated around $60,000, just shy of $30,000 per goal. In addition to the project, we also quoted out and got some preliminary estimate numbers on volleyball netting, posts, and stands. So for 13 volleyball nets, posts, and judges' stands, and or referee stands, the cost on that is about $195,000. I don't know that if we broke those out of the CIP request, that it would hinder our ability to still get that content. I think that the sport court flooring surface itself is the most important piece. Obviously, it would be lovely to have all of the infrastructure in place at the facility to be able to provide to event producers and promoters and or youth sports activity associations and groups to say, we have all of this equipment, you don't have to rent anything to come into the facility and utilize the facility for these types of activities. But I do still think there is a component there that wouldn't hurt our ability to gain that business if we didn't have the volleyball nets and referee stands. So that's a pretty significant amount that correlates into the request as a whole. So just something to keep in mind as we look through that process. I'm happy to run through the rest of our CIP requests, but a lot of them have remained the same. with financial adjustments based on cost of labor and services and goods that have changed over the past number of years. But we have CIP requests ranging from renovations to some of our satellite buildings to a refresh of our security camera system and a couple other projects in there too. So I'm happy to dive into those in detail if you'd like, but I wanted to spend the majority of the focus talking about the 2025 CIP request.
Any questions on CIP?
I have a question about the sports courts.
Yeah.
Are they lined for basketball and you have to put them together in a certain order? And,
Yeah.
And what all sports would you have them, have the graphics for? Would it be like volleyball, basketball?
Yes. So short answer, yes, they can be lined. The process we're looking at is a non-lined court. So basically every piece of the sport court that we would lay down would be identical to the next piece. No lines, no game lines. What we would utilize the space for would vary in size of the court needs, both from volleyball and basketball, and the potential of hosting indoor court sports like, pickleball or possibly even tennis. We would utilize a tape surface that sport court manufacturer provides and sells to tape out the actual game lines and the play lines and the out-of-bounds lines for those individual sports. But they do make the court where you can get the lines permanently imprinted on the surface.
So when you come in with volleyball standards, that doesn't attach to the floor. They're self-supporting and.
Yeah, the volleyball stanchions, or at least the what we have sourced, are self-supporting stanchions. So they don't tie into the sport court itself. It's weighted. There's a number of different ways they are weighted, either with water or physical weights and or sand. But they are systems that erect the side poles. On one side of the side poles is the referee stanchion. They each come with that. And then the other side would be a weighted system that carries the support of the net.
CIP questions, Mr. Mays? Can we just pop back? We had the Fair Association here a couple of weeks ago to talk to us about, they had made a request to maybe even look at building a whole new fair complex and really conflict with Stormont Vail Event Center in operations and in billing and in costs and being, from their perspective, and I'm using my words, not theirs, priced out of the event center. Is there a way that we may be able to work with the Fair Association within your budget to kind of address some of these concerns that they have?
Yeah, I will say we've spent a bit of time with the Fair Association going through some of their concerns and challenge points. We've made a number of concessions to allow them to operate the fair a little bit more efficiently as a fair association and a group of volunteers and associate members that benefit the fair, right? We are certainly not attempting to price the fair out of the facility, so we have made a number of variations to our policy to allow them to generate revenue for the fair outside of what our normal policies would be. In addition to that, we are trying to support and help grow the fair by bringing in and attracting additional pieces of business for the fair, like the kickoff for the fair will be the 38th special concert on Thursday, July 25th. The fair and the fair board will receive a portion of the net revenues from that event from the facility to help, again, go back into their accounts and help grow the financial stability of the fair. There are a number of, obviously we are a facility management company with a long list of policies and regulations and how we operate, and we understand that a lot of that is more centralized around the way we develop our operation. But when we have events like the fair where they have their own set of how they garner their revenues through the pancake feeds and the Sunday Fun Days and some of the activities. We are trying to make exceptions to that to allow them to continue to generate those revenues.
I just didn't know if there's ways that we can maybe, I know that sometimes we're held to corporate standards, and being able to recognize that sometimes small events like the fair are still a vital part of our community.
Sure.
Same with nonprofits and other entities that, the last thing I think I would ever want to see is that the Thanksgiving banquet wasn't able to use the Stormont Vail Event Center because of corporate policy.
Yeah. I can tell you that the Community Thanksgiving Foundation and the Thanksgiving dinner is fully supported by our teams, both from the venue management side and our food and beverage division, to continue the operation of that. And additionally to that, some other pieces of business like the Fiesta Coronation Ball is a piece of partnered business where we alleviate some of our policies to help them promote that event as well. We try and take the community and civic engaged organizations and or nonprofit and 501c3 type of events and help them as best we can, while still trying to make sure that we as a facility are not subsidizing the event, but not necessarily budgeting large margins of revenue on those events either. So we do take that into account, and we try and be as respectful and reasonable as we possibly can on some of those pieces of business. But I certainly understand your position there.
Okay. Questions for Jennifer?
Two things. First, as we move into CIP discussions in the future, are you wanting me to change the amount for the sport court purchase down to the $276? Is that your preferred?
So the way, I would probably, so the way I developed the request was two parts, right? So they're all encompassing both parts. The only variation would be part two would be the higher sport court option, and part one would be the lower sport court option. So on part one, lower sport court option, with everything else included into the project, the volleyball nets, the basketball, current court refresh and repair, as well as the new basketball goals, that would be $591,880 on that request to do everything. And that is on the low end. On that high end, I believe it was, sorry.
No, that's right. We currently have just the sport court listed at $407,493, and then $315,000 for all of the uplift items. I don't know if that's the right way to describe them.
Yeah, I'm happy to present it either way.
And then the other thing, I just wanted to let you know, because I think you are currently listing included in your request the amount to cover the county's insurance at $297,100. And I believe we would also be looking at stripping that out of this allocation and moving it over to the general 10 GE like we're doing for the rest of the departments.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
I have an insurance calculation a bit different, but I just want to make sure that doesn't also include payroll benefit deductions and healthcare benefit deductions from an employee standpoint.
I don't think so. I went over to your overhead detail tab.
Okay.
That's where it's going to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the line that says county general says $297,100.
Correct.
Okay, so that probably will be what we will be pulling out, and just so you know where in the world that number came from.
So we can adjust our numbers to reflect that.
Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Good. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Switch over to Parks and Recreation.
Do you want to stand up at this point?
Yeah, we'll take a quick break and stand while Tim's coming up, so if we stretch.
So it's not so awkward?
All right. Tim, kick us off.
All right. Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. So first of all, I want to start by thanking John Sutton and Laura Burton and Dick Ketterman here, who have waited out this whole event. And so I appreciate your support. These are all members of our advisory board. And I also want to do a shout out a little bit to Cindy Beck. No, I mean Jennifer Sauer and Andrea Forbes, because I feel like we've just been working almost in the same office for the last 2 weeks. But they've really helped us tremendously through this process and getting on with the new software system. I'm going to be pretty brief, so please ask any questions that you have. But we're going to jump right into this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just what the things we've accomplished since I was here last year. We were reaccredited, and I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. There's only 5 agencies in the state. We're one of 5 that are accredited. There's less than 2% nationally. And what that means is that we do our very best to follow the best practices. You know, we really, being an accredited agency, I feel like provides that blueprint for doing things the right way. And so we're very proud of it and happy with the staff, that the work they put in to get reaccredited. Golf operations. You know, we didn't plan to take over the operations of the front of the pro shops, but that happened. Again, tons of help from people in this room, audit finance, the county counselor's office, HR. That was a process that I think we're about to the end of, but it is working very well. So, and I think you'll see some of the reflections of that as we talk a little bit about the budget. We created 2 park districts. That's something that we talked about doing for the last 5 years. And so we split Shawnee County north and south, almost right down the middle. And I think that has really improved efficiencies. It eliminated a lot of gray area. Whose responsibility is this? Who's in charge of that area? We were able to reduce some of the positions at our upper levels, get more boots on the ground through this process, and I think it is really, there's been a big improvement in my mind in processes and the way we're getting things done. So I feel that that's been very successful. A couple of big projects that we have going on, which I know we've talked about a lot, but Family Park is right on track. I know the pickleball courts and the restroom will be done, if not, it'll be the 1st of August, end of July, if not earlier. I know the pickleball courts will be done before that, but the restroom is what we're waiting on. Once that restroom is operational, we'll probably open up that part of the project. There's a chance the playground will be ready as well, so that's moving along very well. Oakland Pool Project. It took us a little while to get started between a vast amount of community engagement that we took part in, and then the permitting process drug out a little bit longer than we would have liked. But once they got on site and started digging, it has come along pretty quickly. So again, we are planning to open that pool in August. Hopefully, maybe I think that's the 2nd or the 3rd is the first Saturday in August. I'd like to open then, keep it open for a couple of weeks at least, if for no other reason, to make sure everything's working and functioning properly before we put it to bed. But anyway, we're on track for that. I want to thank you for giving us funds to do the turf project on the Parrish Family Field at Bettis. That looks amazing. That turned out great. All kinds of compliments for that. And then last but not least, and I'm not going to go through each one, but we have touched 17 different parks since we did our budget presentation last year. I listed a few of the bigger ones: Sims, Medford, Chesney, Claddo, Bracken, Westboro. There's others. I mean, and it's playground. Some of it's just a piece of playground equipment or two. A lot of them is complete replacement of playground equipment, repairs of sidewalks, new amenities, picnic tables, trash cans, things like that. So I know 5 years ago when I got here, that's all I heard about is deferred maintenance, and it absolutely was a problem. But I think we have tackled so much of that. I don't hear that quite as much as I used to, and I think if you drive around town and you look at the parks, you see the improvements. So very happy with how that's all playing out. All right, budget. Same slide here. I heard Director Cole say earlier that he felt like this was about as close to a flat budget as he could get, and I feel the same. We know that personnel increases were the biggest piece of our budget increase, and that was about, I think, 3.4%. Yeah, I've got that on there. But our overall budget only increased by about 1.7 or 1.8%. So when I mentioned the creation of the park districts, I think that we did find some efficiencies there. And we're able to move money around. Instead of asking for more funds, we were able to really dive into our individual budgets and move money where we needed it. And so I think that worked out well. And the insurance portion, leaving our budget, obviously played a big impact as well. Yeah, the increase is just a little under $310,000. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about that. I think, I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, I can, but if you look at our 2 park districts, we did have to add a significant amount of money to it's listed as natural areas. That's actually, and we'll work with audit finance, hopefully, to get this maybe changed in the future and call that District 1. That's District 1. That's Gage Park and Tom Hammer and his crew. And then the parks budget is really District 2, Scott Terry and his folks based out of the lake. So we did have to add some money to Tom's budget to that one to get him level, sort of even out those 2 divisions. We added some money to our facilities budget. So when I talk about how we've restructured and sort of reorganized a little bit, if there's an issue with a facility, and it doesn't matter what kind, if it's aquatics, if it's athletics, if it's a community center, the facilities folks are taking care of it. Now that sounds simple, but that wasn't always the case. We were kind of spread out with other people doing things. So those budgets have increased in size, but there's no additional funds coming into our budget. It's just reallocating those funds throughout. Our admin budget went up, but that was mainly because we moved the mowing contracts out of the park budget and into the admin budget. That just makes it a little bit easier for them to manage their budgets. They're not worried about that contract piece. That would be such a big portion of Scott Terry's budget, and when it would come out, it would just make him feel like, man, my budget's 3/4 of the way gone. Well, it's really not. So this gives him a better picture of what he's dealing with. It'll make it a little easier for him to manage. I'll run through these others real quick. Revolving fund, that budget went up quite a bit, but that's because we inherited the golf operations piece. And so that budget has increased. So far, so good. I mean, we are on pace to set, for the 3rd year in a row, to set a record in rounds. So that is, I feel real confident that that's working the way we thought that it would. And then I don't think I've ever come up here and talked about West Lawn Cemetery in any of my previous budget discussions, but that budget we did decrease a little bit, $9,000. There's been a lot of talk about West Lawn Cemetery lately. We are, this has nothing to do really with my budget presentation, but just to let you know, we are leveling out a few of the headstones that we had some complaints about. I have made several trips to West Lawn in the last couple of weeks, and I told Commissioner Cook that as I was driving to Colorado last week to help move my daughter and her family, I counted 14 people working there as I was driving by on I-70, because they were all in bright orange because they were Brian Cole's crew, the jail crew out there. So I think that we did several improvements probably 4 or 5 years ago, right? And I think it looks really good right now. So, any questions about any of this? I've got the last slide is my CIP requests, but I don't have any big ticket items that I've added or that I'm requesting as far as the general budget.
Commissioner Rippon?
The Grange Hall,
Yeah.
what are we looking at here now?
So I'm assuming we're moving on here to capital improvements. I didn't list the Grange Hall on here or any of those other projects that are in sort of process, but wasn't my intent to hide that. We have contracted with Short Design. They are putting the finishing touches on the design of that project right now, and I think we agreed to, I believe that was about a $35,000 cost. And once we get those designs back, then we'll decide what the next move is. I did not put that on here. I did not put the Florence property on here, but that is because those projects are going to take that bond money, the remaining amount of the bond money that we've been dealing with. So still very much alive.
Okay.
Commissioner Mays?
Yeah.
I have a question real quick. I know that we've moved some things around with insurance and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's one item under contractual services that jumps out. The last year was 28,000. This year it's 1.4 million.
Which budget are we in?
Your administrative.
Admin?
Admin, yeah.
Yeah, that is the mowing contract. That we moved them out of that other budget and put them in, I believe that's what you're referencing.
Well, I figured it was moved from somewhere to there. I
Yeah,
just
that
wanted
was-
to know.
That's what it is.
Okay.
All those mowing contracts are just now reflected in that line item.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Capital improvements, so most of these you've seen. I did change some things around a little bit. Mainly, if you look at phase 1, 2, and 3 of the West Edge Road Mill and Overlay. You know, that's not a 2025 request, but I tried to split that up over 3 years between 2026 and 2028. Obviously, that's something we're going to have to address, that it continues to get worse, and I fear the longer we wait, the worse it's going to get. You look like you have a question.
Just listening.
I'll run through 2025 real quick. The department master plan has been on here now for a couple of years. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it, but I do want to stress how important I think it is. I think it's more than anything, the two biggest reasons in my mind is, one, it gives the community a chance to be a part of setting the direction for the next 5 years on what they want to see and what we want to do together. Getting that community input, I feel like, is imperative. And I would rather get it up front than have to, make decisions and then have to answer to them later. So I just think it provides that roadmap, it gets the community involved, and it lets us know what our priorities are going to be for the next 5 years. And we're doing that internally right now, but I think this really helps, and I think it's important. And I've mentioned this before, it's not the only reason to do it, but we are as part of our accreditation, we are asked, that is one of the requirements, is to have an active master plan. And ours will expire at the end of this year. So, and then just, another reason is that I'm a very competitive person, and I think that we have done so much over the last 2 or 3 years that I want to apply for the National Parks and Recreation Gold Medal Award. And I think we've got a heck of a chance, just based on all the projects and all the reorganization and the Gage Park Improvement Authority, everything that has transpired. I think we'd have a real shot at doing that. And I know there's a lot of agencies around us that have tried many times and could not get that done. And it would be a real feather in our cap to say we're a gold medal agency. So, quad field replacements at Bettis. So I'm super appreciative of the Paris family field that we were able to do. Now we turn our sights to the quad fields, and that needs to be done. They were put in at the same time. as the parish family field, so they're due. As we stay in 2025, I'll move down to Gage Park Authority funding. You know that we are working on plans to do some renovation for Playland. That's the only big ticket item that we have scheduled for 2025. Of course, that could change depending on, if the zoo were to come to us and say, we really, we need to expand and we need big gauge, we'd have to probably look at what our priorities are and try to readjust. SPR revolving funds, staying on 2025 here. The rec building at Lake Shawnee, that's where we have our camps at Lake Shawnee. We can cover that full amount out of our revolving fund for camps. So we wouldn't be asking for any additional money from the commission, just permission to move forward once we're ready. We would have those funds. That covers 2025. I won't go through every year here. I just want to highlight a couple of things.
Tim, you have
Yeah.
one more for 25.
Would I cost over? Yes, yeah, I added it yesterday. On my sheet anyways, yeah, she had the information, but yes, the Crossover Tennis Center. Those courts need resurfaced. The Tennis Association, Topeka Tennis Association, went out and got 3 bids. I mean, we'll have to do that ourselves, but if we move forward, but they did it just to get a price. And that's the low number that came back was that $175. They do have about $15,000 in the foundation that they're willing to put towards that. So that would knock that price down somewhat. But that's one that I believe that I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know it's been at least 8 years since those were done. And they are starting to show wear, and it is a crown jewel, I think, of tennis in Topeka and really in this area. So we'd like to keep it up. That's it for 2025. The only thing on here that I guess I wanted to bring up that's, I don't know that it's new, but way out in 2028, we've got Family Park Phase 2, and I just wrote down Cypress Ridge, that's at the very bottom. We're gonna have to make a decision on what we wanna do with the clubhouse at Cypress Ridge. We're either gonna need to start investing some money in it and trying to renovate it, or start making plans to replace it with something else. I don't know how we do that. I have this listed as a CIP bond project. It's not bonded, we would have to do that. I'm just wanting to put it on the radar that I can't continue to do nothing. I mean, we're doing a little bit. We get a leak in the roof, we try to patch it, but that's about it. And if you're out in that area and you want to, if you want to walk around with it, I'd be happy to take you out there and walk you around. But you don't even really need to go in. Just drive through the parking lot and take a look. It's in pretty bad shape. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for any questions.
Questions?
I have a question on the mill and overlays. Would that not be part of our parking lot fund that we have at Kurt? This
Yes.
is kind of out of the wheelhouse, out of the wheelhouse of Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I just
The
wondered-
way it was originally set up, the roofs and parking lot fund was only for departments that didn't have larger
see.
other funding. I don't know, we can certainly look into that though.
All right.
Commissioner Mays?
No, I don't think I have anything right now.
I don't know that I have anything at this moment, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then we have TARC here.
Guess it's good afternoon
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
Commissioners.
So close.
I'm Laura Marple, and I'm the Finance Director for TARC Inc. And on behalf of TARC, SLI, and CAPERS, I want to thank the Commissioners for their consideration of funding for intellectual and developmental services provided in Shawnee County. I would also like to thank the commissioners for the county's partnership on TARC's two main fundraisers, Winter Wonderland and the golf tournament, both at Lake Shawnee. Both continue to be very successful events for our organization. Each agency is requesting a 3% increase in funding for 2025. TARC utilizes the funding for several of our programs, including our infant toddler program, which provided services to over 1,000 children in Shawnee County last year. It also supports our feeding clinic, which provides invaluable services to both children and adults who have feeding and swallowing issues. It's a very time-intensive and ongoing process. It's difficult to bill for, and we think that Dr. Delgado, who runs the feeding clinic, her time is better spent providing those services than trying to bill, because we end up getting more cost in it than what we receive in billing. So we also have our other ongoing programs that utilize funding, including our day support services, case management, guardianship, and assistive technology. SLI and CAPERS both use the funding to help support transportation costs, maintenance, program supplies, some of the expenses that aren't necessarily covered by Medicaid funding. So the county funding allows these organizations to continue to provide quality services to the residents of Shawnee County who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. We very much appreciate the support so that we can continue to provide the high quality services. I can go into any detail you would like, but I'll leave it at that unless you have specific questions.
Commissioner Mays, questions?
No, we appreciate the work you guys do.
Okay.
Commissioner Rippon? I mean, it's a 3% request increase, and I mean, we're very, very indebted to all the work that TARC does in the community and the work that you do to make our community a little bit better. So,
all right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that would then conclude the budget hearings that we had scheduled for this morning. I might also note I was just doing some quick calculations. That constitutes 65% of the budget requests. So,
The big dollars.
so while they're not as many, it does the bigger requests made from the budget.
Yeah.
So we will resume on Monday, July the 1st, with the remainder of our budget hearings to be on Monday morning and then into Monday afternoon. So see you all back here on Monday.